Hi everyone, welcome to our brand new series on Coach Master, Unlocking the Mind's Potential, a Business Revolution. In part 2, Coach David Wetmore will reveal how organizations can tap into their employees' innate wisdom and potential, presenting it as a built-in solution to workplace challenges. Join us and unlock the mind's potential to revolutionize your organization. Let's begin. Over to you, David.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is David Wetmore, Intentional Excellence, LLC. I do life coaching and mental fitness coaching. Today, I am going to be presenting part 2 of a 3-part webinar on unlocking the mind's potential, a business revolution. And just a quick recap of part 1, we talked about the mind and how the mind is, everyone is connected to the same source of energy and knowledge as everyone else. And that what we want to do, what I'm trying to do with this webinar series is encourage business owners, people within organizations to tap into all that invisible power that lies within the organizations, which is often overlooked because it seems as if in organizations there tends to be this sense of starting from the top down, that and down doesn't usually extend very far beyond the sea level. So what I'm trying to do with this webinar is encourage people to use all that power within their organizations in some kind of, in sometimes unique ways. So I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to start presenting here, and we will get on with the program. So you can let me know, anybody, if you can't see this. It's coming up. So here we are. Once again, title is Unlocking the Mind's Potential, a Business Revolution. Today, what we're going to start with is the current reality. And this is where we ended the last time. The current reality in a lot of organizations is inefficiency. And one of the main reasons for the inefficiency of organizations is the misunderstanding of the mind's potential, the knowledge. Something that just came into my mind that I've heard often and that is really powerful is that the worst way to learn something is when we think we already know it, because we limit our outside possibilities to what we already know. So what I like to encourage people to do is to go into every adventure, every piece of work, and as if we don't know, as if we're ignorant almost, and then allow other voices, other ideas to come in and really inspire, give us new inspiration, insights, new ideas. Ideas are, well, we're talking about limited ideas, and that's the limitation. The limitation is our mind. Our mind is as vast and as broad as we allow it to be. Unfortunately, with what happens is with social indoctrination, it becomes very limited. We really cut down on our perception, if you will. So what this leads to, obviously, is ineffective execution. So the built-in solution for this slowing down of ideas, for this sense of not being able to keep up, not being able to compete, and so on and so forth, is the mind's power. Wisdom and logic are built into our mind. Everyone is born with it. Everyone is born with the same power to create. It gets, over time, it gets limited by our thinking, by what we think we know, by what we do know, and by the, as I said earlier, the social indoctrination around us. And that social indoctrination extends into organizations a lot of time. We have that organizational indoctrination. So what I want to do with this presentation is open up the possibilities, help you understand that there is a lot of untapped wisdom within your organization. And it's from that untapped wisdom that the real innovation arises, the real insights come up. Not to harp on it too much, but what we talked about in the first session was how there are two ways to look at this. One is the outside in, which is where most organizations end up. They look outside, they see what's happening out there, and then they react to what's happening outside. And reactionary thinking usually ends up being, or a lot of times ends up being, impulsive thinking and limited thinking. So what we want to do is we want to think about more on responding rather than reacting. Responding allows us to take our time, to sit back, to kind of think through the operations, maybe even consult before we jump to some sort of in the moment type of response. So the big thing that holds us back is really understanding the mind's mechanism, and that's what I work on. That's the difference between typical consulting and consulting from a transformational type of point of view. So the mind's mechanism. The first thing that we have to do in order to make any change is become aware. We have to become aware of our thoughts and our feelings. And our thoughts and feelings are inextricably tied together. There is what I like to say, there is a way that we perceive the outside world, and that is by, there's an event, and that event causes a thought. The thought then creates an emotion. And it's through that emotion then that we take action. And then that brings our result. So if you look at that chain, event, thought, emotion, action, result, if we start at the top, not at the very top, not at the event, but at the thought. So it's the thought that causes the emotion. And thought is the generator of all emotions. Everything depends on our thoughts. That's why two people can look at the same event and have completely different perception of that event. So that right there is an indication that our thinking is what's causing our emotions and our feelings. And unfortunately, I left out the most important part of that, and that is the feeling. The thought creates the feeling, which creates the emotion. And then it's after the emotion comes the action and the result. So thought, feeling, emotion, action, result. That's the chain. So once you understand that your results are because of your thinking, then that really opens up a whole new world of being able to address issues, problems, and not even issues and problems, but just everyday life. If you understand that your feelings are caused by your thoughts, number one, feelings are caused by thoughts. And then feelings guide us. We're guided by our feelings. So thought, feeling, that's always the case. And then if we apply this to our everyday life, that automatically, if you automatically are aware that your thoughts are causing your feelings, that in itself is going to help you slow down and respond rather than react. It's those reactionary emotions, basically, that really get us into trouble. What this does is, by understanding the thought, feeling, emotion, action relationship, is it really gives us a few things that we can work on. And the power of focus is one of them. If you have a clear mind, we all know that we have insights. The most common time to have insights and new ideas is like in the shower, when you're driving to work, or on vacation. And the reason is because you have a clear mind. Your mind is not bogged down with feelings and emotions that are caused by your interpretation of the events around you. So with that in mind, with that awareness of where your actual thinking, how your actual thinking works, that gives you a much better opportunity to focus on your objectives and come up with real lasting ideas and insights. It will also help you to eliminate distractions, because once we're multitasking has been proven, it's been shown time and again. Many scientific studies have shown that multitasking is counterproductive. It takes several seconds and even minutes from the time you finish one task till you begin another task. So if you start a task and you interrupt that because there's another task that you think is more important at this moment, then when you come back to your first task, you're going to be exponentially behind where you would have been had you just continued. So what we want to do is we want to have clear thinking, eliminate distractions, and that's going to automatically maximize our productivity. Back to feelings, the ultimate feedback mechanism, self-awareness, understanding our own feelings, understanding how our feelings are generated. They're generated by our thoughts. So if you want to have different feelings, if you don't like the way you feel, you think different thoughts. One analogy I like to use on that is imagine that thoughts are a train, and every train car is a thought. And you can jump on any one of those train cars at any time, and you can stay there as long as you want to. But as long as you're caught up on that one car, in that one thought, really nothing's going to change. The fact of the matter is that we have the power to jump off of that car at any time we want to and jump on another one with a different thought. Humans have 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. So if you have a thought that is not being productive, then change your thinking. I know that sounds easy, but with practice, it's not so difficult. And there are mechanisms, meditation, those kinds of things that can really help you with that. And our thoughts create feelings. That's the big thing about thinking about our thoughts, is that they create feelings. And it's those feelings that guide us. Those feelings direct us where we're going. So once again, there's my result sequence on the slide there. Event leads to a thought, leads to a feeling, leads to an emotion. It's when we're in that emotion, that's where we're taking action, and that's the result. So you can see right there, if we have good emotions, our actions are almost certainly going to be better. Our results are going to be more in line with what we want. Let's go all the way back to thought. We really can't change the event, but we can change the way we think about the event. There has been a lot of groundbreaking research in neuroscience, in the field of neuroscience. And what has been shown in the last few years is that our brain is really very pliable. Our brain, we can actually regrow portions of our brain. It's not a fixed thing like it was thought of in the past, that once we're born and once we shape our character and all those kinds of things, that our brain is fairly stable. and innate, but that's not the case. The case, matter of fact, is that the brain we can regrow our brain. We can change our thinking at any time we want to. So some of the things that we can do to enhance that, to really get away from that set thought feeling pattern that we all get into, is to break habits. First thing is to break habits. Challenge yourself to do something different and see what the results are. To throw in something else on top of that is that what I like to say is that consider everything that you are intending to do as an experiment. Experiments never fail. Experiments simply provide data. If you go into a project and you're expecting a result, then you may well be disappointed if the result that you were expecting doesn't happen. But if you go into it expecting it as an experiment, then all you're going to, your expectation is just going to be, does it work? Does it not work? If it doesn't work, how do I fix it? If it does work, fine, I'll go with it. But experiments, and that's been more helpful to more people than I can tell you about, is experiments. Experiments never fail. So use that. Write that down if you have to. Experiments never fail. Another thing we can do is to become more playful, to take some of that pressure off. It's not necessary to live a life of stress. Stress is an opportunity killer. When we're living in a stressful state, we're not productive. We may think we're productive. We may be getting the job right in front of us done, but in the overall scheme of things, that stress is keeping us from seeing other possibilities and expanding our own awareness. And then look for connections between ideas that just don't seem to be connected. Look for answers in unusual places. And that in a corporate setting is the advantage of tapping into all that brain power. Because like I said earlier, once someone thinks they know something, it's really hard to convince them that there might be another way, or that what they think they know is not what is actually the case. So experiment, look for alternative ways to do things that maybe you haven't done before, but always do this, and take care of yourself while you're doing it. Be compassionate and empathetic with yourself in the pursuit of this. So this can transform business process. If people within an organization are all aware of how their thinking is leading to the results, and if our leadership embodies this and takes it to the entire organization, the insights generated are absolutely amazing. I had one client a couple years ago, and they were just absolutely stuck. They were the CEO was panicked and stressed out. The employees were just not even considered in the process. Everything that was happening within his organization, the CEO was taking it on himself and just adding to his stress. So once we had I started out coaching the CEO, and once he saw what his thinking was capable of, when we peeled back those layers of stress, then we opened it up to the entire organization, and the results were amazing. There was a particular that they had been having in production, and they had consultants come in, and they had done all kinds of work on this, spent thousands of dollars trying to fix this production problem. It was actually a janitor that came up with an idea that led to the solution to this problem. So that's what we try to do with this type of work with corporations and organizations, is spread it out, spread out some of that problem solving, send it down the line. Here's a couple of resources. I apologize for the font there that you can hardly see, but there's an outstanding book called Invisible Power. I keep it right here with me all the time. I've given away numerous copies of this book. This book documents how this type of work can actually transform organizations. All of this, most of this, not all of it, but most of it is based on a philosophy that was initiated by Sydney Banks, who was a Scottish Canadian welder who actually had an epiphany. And the epiphany was that we are born with well-being as our birthright. We are born well. When you look at children, when you look at the way they play, the way they act, there is nothing off limits. There's no stress whatsoever. It's only when we indoctrinate them and bring them up and through that social network that then they start limiting themselves and they limit basically limit their lives. So Sydney Banks, I highly recommend any book by Sydney Banks, The Missing Link, The Enlightened Gardener, Second Chance. They're all real easy reads, big print, short chapters. I've had people have epiphanies themselves from reading Sydney Banks books. Invisible Power, it's just chock full of stories of organizations who have taken this on at a big level, big organizations, multi-million-dollar organizations who have seen an absolute transformation of their business in the process. So that's what I have for today in part 2. There's my contact information right there. If you'd like a copy of this program, if you'd like a copy of the slides, I can be happy to send that to you. My contact problem solving, send it down the line. Here's a couple of resources. I apologize for the font there that you can hardly see, but there's an outstanding book called Invisible Power. I keep it right here with me all the time. I've given away numerous copies of this book. This book documents how this type of work can actually transform organizations. All of this, most of this, not all of it, but most of it is based on a philosophy that was initiated by Sydney Banks, who was a Scottish Canadian welder who actually had an epiphany. And the epiphany was that we are born with well-being as our birthright. We are born well. When you look at children, when you look at the way they play, the way they act, there's nothing off limits. There's no stress whatsoever. It's only when we indoctrinate them and bring them up and through that social network that then they start limiting themselves and they limit basically limit their lives. So Sydney Banks, I highly recommend any book by Sydney Banks, The Missing Link, The Enlightened Gardener, Second Chance. They're all real easy reads, big print, short chapters. I've had people have epiphanies themselves from reading Sydney Banks books. Invisible Power, it's just chock full of stories of organizations who have taken this on at a big level, big organizations, multi-million-dollar organizations who have seen an absolute transformation of their business in the process. So that's what I have for today in part 2. There's my contact information right there. If you'd like a copy of this program, if you'd like a copy of the slides, I can be happy to send that to you. My contact information right there on the screen. So reach out by phone, by email, any way you want to. And I will be presenting part 3 of this in a few days. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that that you actually gain something from it, and I look forward to having you here on the next webinar, on the next series. So, thanks again for coming and joining me, and we'll talk to you soon, I hope.